Fine. So this is the Facebook web page which has opened, and I was writing this code. So this will actually go and get the title of the web page, print the XY coordinate of this, the name field. All right. But there are other locator strategies as well. For example, if I investigate this web page and look at the surname field, the surname field has an attribute known as name. Name is also supposed to be unique. Fine. So I can also write the code like this, that is driver dot find element by the name, and you can specify the element name dot send keys. You can just write last, and when you run this will interact with the element and type last into it. Fine. Now there are few possibilities. Just a minute. Yeah, there are few possibilities. That is, firstly, the element is not found. Fine. For example, if you uh, for example, if you are having the last name field over here, okay, and I am typing something inside it, I give a name which is not which will not be found on the web page. Then what will happen? Obviously, it will throw some error. Okay, but what kind of error it is, and we'll go into it right now. So when you run this, you get an exception immediately. Okay, no such element exception. If you get this exception, then you should know that the element is not found on the web page, and it will tell you the line number as well, that is dynamicscript.java line number 38. The error is coming, and if you read it carefully, it will say unable to locate the element and by the name last name. Okay, so obviously, fine, it's saying the right thing, but the thing is, sometimes you have to wait. Maybe the element takes 5 minutes to load, or 5 seconds to load, not minutes, 5 seconds to load after the page is loaded. And Selenium, what it does is that it finds the element. If it doesn't find the element, it will simply throw the exception. But you want Selenium to maybe wait for 5 seconds, keep on checking for 5 seconds, and then throw the exception. One of the solutions is that you can write over here thread.sleep for 5 seconds. One of the solution is this, that is, it's a checked exception. You'll have to write throws interrupted exception. So over here, this means that pause the program for 5 seconds. Okay, maybe the element takes 5 seconds to load, and after that you can interact with the element. Sometimes this works. Okay, but the problem with thread.sleep is that it will wait for 5 seconds, but you see, now it will wait for 5 seconds, and after 5 seconds you will be getting an exception. Okay, the problem is that it's like a mandatory pause. Suppose if the element becomes visible in the 3rd second, then also it will wait mandatorily for 5 seconds. Okay, we can use thread.sleep. I am not against it, but if you use once or twice in the program, that is fine. But if I am using thread.sleep after every line, this way is not a good practice. This will simply slow down everything. Okay, so what we do is, over here we use implicit wait. Okay, what we do is that we write over here driver.manage dot timeouts dot implicitly wait for 20 seconds, 20 comma you can write time unit dot seconds. So this is implicit wait. I am writing implicit wait immediately after opening the browser. Immediately after opening the browser, I am putting an implicit wait. Alright, the second thing is that this is a dynamic wait. What do you mean by dynamic wait? This will say that fine, you will wait maximum 20 seconds for element to be present. Okay, and if the element appears in 5th second, it will use it and move forward. It will keep on polling the page for 20 seconds to find the element. It is not pausing the program like 20 seconds. Alright, and the most important part is that it is applicable to all driver.findElement commands. Okay, so whenever you write driver.findElement commands, implicit wait will be applicable to those commands automatically. If the element is found instantly, that's good, but if it is not found, it will wait maximum 20 seconds before throwing the exception. So in my case, if I run this, for the last name field, it will throw the exception after 20 seconds. If the name field was available, it was present in the 5th second or the 6th second, it would have used it. Okay, so you see that over here. Okay, what happened? Are you guys able to hear me? This Facebook is not responding. My internet is good. Yeah, so now it will wait for 20 seconds. Alright, before it actually throws the exception. Alright, now we have something known as explicit wait as well. Fine. What do you mean by explicit wait? This is implicit wait. Okay, it's fine, it's applicable to all the elements. But sometimes you have to, just wait for an element specifically. Okay, you have to have a wait on one particular element specific exclusively. For that we have got explicit wait. Alright, I will tell you an example. For example, if I go to the website makemytrip.com, okay, and I try to book a flight from say Delhi to London, and maybe in the month of December. Okay, and when I search for it, there is an intermediate page which comes up. Maybe this page comes up for more than 20 seconds. So implicit wait obviously will not help you over here. So you have to exclusively wait for this message to go away for say maximum 30 seconds. So over there we can put explicit wait. So this might not work over there. Okay, so anyways, this was just an example. I'll tell you about explicit wait later on. Fine. Now, moving ahead, we have seen how to identify the elements with name, and we have seen how to identify the elements with ID. Now, there is also something known as CSS selectors or XPaths. Let me just start with XPaths. Okay, now what do you mean by XPath? XPath is like, it's like the address of the element on the web page. Like all of you stay somewhere, right? You must be having an address. So similarly, XPath is like the address of the element on the web page. And there are two types of XPaths. One is known as absolute or complete XPath, and the other one is known as the partial XPath. Fine. Now, what do you mean by absolute or complete and partial XPath? I'll tell you. Say, for example, I'm on the Facebook page itself. Alright. And if I inspect any element, then every element will not have an ID or a name. If I investigate this image over here, this image on the Facebook page, it's not an image actually, it's I tag. It's not having any ID or name, it's got a class. Okay, so you cannot identify this element with your regular commands. Okay, so you will have to build XPath for this. Now, for building apps complete XPath, everything starts from the HTML tag. This is the root tag of the complete web page. In this root tag, one tag is head tag. Head tag contains normal data, the imports and all, everything, right? The title of the web page and all. Okay. And majorly we are interested in the body tag because body tag holds the contents of the web page. Inside the body tag, you have got a division tag. Fine, you have two division tags, and these are parallel tags. What do you mean by parallel tags? Understand how the page structure is there. Okay, I mean to say, hold on, that this is the HTML tag. Under this HTML tag, body tag is present. Under this body tag, you have got, under this body tag, you have got multiple division tags which are parallel to each other, and then there are script tags which are parallel to each other. Okay, right. Now, if you look at the first division tag, if you expand it, then there are again multiple divisions. You are interested to go inside the second division inside this particular division. Fine. So because ultimately you have to reach this I tag. So you have to traverse between the tags and you have to reach this I tag. So if you hit Control F, hold on, Control F of the keyboard, you will see a text bar at the bottom. Okay, the focus should be in this inspector, Chrome inspector, and you will see a text box. The first tag name is the HTML tag. So you write HTML. Right. Under that, there is a head tag and a body tag. So you are interested to go inside the body tag. So you write body. Right. Under the body tag, there are multiple divisions parallel to each other. Okay. You write /div1. 1 means that I want to go inside the first division under the body tag. Okay. If I had to go in the second division, I would have written 2. Alright, because there are parallel divisions, so I have to give the number. Now, under this division tag, there are 3 divisions parallel to each other. You want to go inside the second one. So you will write /div2. Fine. It says that 1 out of 1 element found. That means it is highlighting this element or finding this element uniquely. You click on this down arrow. Okay, it is not highlighting. Let me refresh this. Hold on. Okay, anyways, it's not doing. So you have to keep on traversing like this till you move to this I tag. Under the second division, there is another one division which is blue bar DOM inspector. So you write /div, and under this you have got another division, which is this one. So you write slash div, and under this division you have again a division. So there are multiple division tags. You have to keep on traversing them. This is the next one. Okay, but there is no need to build this manually. Okay, I can make it manually. I can keep on doing this. You can simply right click on this element and you will get the option copy full XPath. When you copy the full XPath, you paste it over here, it will highlight the element. Okay, it will say that one element is found. Okay, right, and you can take this particular XPath and use it in your code. Fine. So how will you use it? I'll tell you. Like for example, I will right click on the surname section over here, and then I will inspect it, or I can inspect it from this arrow. Right click on it and I can copy the full XPath. Full XPath of this surname is this. Okay, but we don't prefer to use the absolute or complete XPaths, because if something changes at the very root over here, okay, if something changes at the very root of the document, then almost all the XPaths would have to be changed, and it will be a big headache in the project. Alright, we don't prefer to use them. Sometimes you have to use them because the other things, when they are not working and you end up using this thing is very accurate. It starts from the root of the document and goes to the element, but the only thing is that it's so long that if something changes in between of the web page, then you'll have to change the scripts. So you can use it in places where nothing else is working, okay, but refrain from using this everywhere. Alright, so you can use this type of XPath, and instead of writing driver.findElement by the name last name, you can write driver.findElement by the XPath. You can provide the XPath dot send keys last. Okay, when you run this code, okay, you see that it opens and types in last over here, right? Okay, but what we do is that we practically use the partial XPath. Partial XPath will always start with a double slash. Fine. For example, if I write over here /a, okay, or /* this means all the tags on the web page. Okay, if I just copy this and go over here, Control F, and you see that it says 1 out of 624 elements. If I am pasting this, okay, you can keep on clicking down button and it will highlight every tag one by one. Fine. If I write just /a, A is the tag name for the anchor tag representing the links. So this will basically represent all the links on the web page. Okay, so if I write /a, Control F, paste, so there are 56 links on this web page. Okay, I can be more specific. Fine, I can be more specific. For example, this is the first name field. The tag name is input. Fine, if I make an XPath like this, that is /input, this will represent all input tags. Now text fields also have got input tags, radio buttons have also got input tags, then uh, the normal buttons also have got input tags, but you just want this particular text field, say the first text field, first name. Then you take out a stable parameter, for example the name or the ID over here. Okay, or what you can do is that you can right click on this and simply say copy XPath instead of full XPath. So you will get an XPath like this, /* that means out of all the elements on the web page, get me the element whose ID is this is the ID. Instead of this you use single quotes. Okay, instead of double quotes you can put single quotes. So what you can do is you can use this XPath, or you can use, instead of star you can write input, that is out of all the input tags give me the element whose ID is U0M. You can copy this and instead of writing this command you can simply write driver.findElement by the XPath this dot send keys hello. So when you run this code, okay, you see that it types in hello. Right, now if you look at say the XPath of this text, if you want to retrieve this text, create an account. If you look at this is the text. If you right click on it and copy the XPath, you get an XPath like this. Now what is this? Why is this? Why are you getting this kind of XPath? The thing is, the browser tries to build the XPath based on the nearest element having ID. This span tag has not got any ID. Okay, this span tag over here has no ID, so it jumps to this division tag. It has got no ID, it jumps to this division, so it keeps on jumping upwards, and it finally finds a division with the ID global container. Fine, it finds this division with ID global container, so it starts to build the XPath and comes to the span tag. Instead of going to the root of the document, which is the HTML tag, right, this is also a viable option, that you can start with the nearest element having an ID. Okay, so that is why you get this XPath. Okay, it starts with ID content. Okay, from this element, from this division has the ID content. It starts from here. Fine, so you can take this XPath and you can simply write, that is driver dot find element by the XPath, and you can give this XPath, instead of double quotes please provide single quotes. Fine, and dot get text. Okay, get text command gets you the visible text on the web page. Fine, and you can get the text and print it. Now the best part is the locators, the XPaths you can make on any browser, and you can run the scripts on any other browser and they will work. I have investigated everything on Chrome right now. Okay, I can make it run on Mozilla. Okay, I can write over here the browser is Mozilla, and the same script will run on Mozilla as well, because ultimately the page source, the response from the server is the same, only the browser is differing, right? So when you run it on Mozilla, You see that it types hello and last, and it also prints the text. Now the problem is, in Mozilla at times you try to inspect the elements. Okay, if I try to inspect this surname field in Mozilla, fine, or the same text over here, create an account. If I try to copy the XPath, you have the option of copying the XPath in Mozilla as well. Okay, if I try to copy the XPath over here and I see the same XPath in Mozilla, it gives you the complete XPath. This is the problem. In Mozilla at times you might not get the partial XPath. So it's better to use Chrome. I prefer to use Chrome. Okay, you calculate everything inside it, XPath and all, and then you can actually later on simply run it on other browsers as well. Okay, now moving forward, if you talk more about XPaths, then just a minute. What we do is that when we practically work with Selenium, we can calculate the XPaths from the browser also. Okay, or we can use our own custom XPaths. Right, I'll tell you the custom XPaths in coming times, but right now just try to use the partial XPaths and from the browser and try to work with them. Fine. Now moving ahead, there are few things in Java which I need to cover. Okay, because without that I cannot proceed with the training. For example, the basic thing is exception handling. Right, we saw that no such element exception was coming up. Fine. So when we were actually giving the wrong name and all, so at times you need to manage exceptions when you are writing scripts. So what I need to teach you right now, I'm just moving away from XPaths for some time, and I'm going into Java and teaching you about XPaths, and then exception handling and stuff, and then I'm going to come back to Selenium as well. Okay, so what I want to teach you is the concept of exceptions. Right, hold on. Because it is not like that you just have to learn Selenium. I will have to teach you how to build test cases with TestNG as well. Probably I'll do that tomorrow, because this is a simple script which I have written. Over here, this is just a simple script. There is no result, there is no report, there is nothing. Okay, so we'll also see TestNG by tomorrow. Alright, so you'll have to learn how to build a test case and write the script inside it. Right, now exceptions. What is basically an exception? Look, suppose your script is running. I will write over here A and B, and between this I will write int I equals to 100 divided by 2. Okay, so when you run this, this will simply print A and B. Fine. But if I write 100 divided by 0, okay, if I put 100 divided by 0 and if I run this, then you will say that you will get an exception. The exception is arithmetic exception, which is divided by 0 exception. Fine, it prints A, but it never prints B. Okay, now suppose your script is running. And something happens in between and it stops abruptly like this. You would never want that. Even if the element is not present, you would not want that the script should just stop abruptly. Maybe you want to report that fine, something wrong has happened and this is the error, and probably after that you can decide whether to stop the script or not. Probably sometimes the error is not a very critical error that you just have to stop the script. Fine. So you can use exception handling over here. You can put this line between try catch block. Okay. Now whatever lines you write inside the try block, if exception happens in any one of those lines, I'll also print over here try 1, just like that I'm printing, and try 2. So you can write multiple lines of code inside the try block. If something wrong happens, right, on any of the lines, the control goes to the catch block, where you can, first of all, you can report the exception, okay, or we can call it a failure as well. And you can also decide to stop the script or to stop the test case. Fine. Okay. So now if I write over here system.out.println inside catch, when you run this, it prints A try 1 inside catch B. See, exception happens on this line, and after that the control goes in the catch block. In the try block, if exception happens on any line, the lines after that will not actually execute. The program will continue normally. It will go to the catch block, it will print this, and it will continue normally. But the lines after this particular line on which exception is coming up, they will not be getting executed. However, if no exception comes up, I write 100 divided by 2. And over here, A try 1, try 2, B, everything is printed. The control never went to the exception block. Okay. Now, this is simple. Okay, most of the times we will be doing this. Whenever we feel that fine, something wrong can happen with this piece of code, we will put a try catch block, right? So you will have to foresee. You should have a sight, you should have a vision that fine, something wrong can happen over here, and I should put my code inside try catch block over here. Okay. But sometimes Java enforces you to put try catch block. Okay, for example, we just saw, if I give a command like thread.sleep for 5 seconds, 5000 milliseconds, you get an error on this line, because Java wants you to forcibly put this line under try catch block, because Java thinks that fine, the current thread can pause for 5 seconds, but maybe some other thread can interrupt this thread in between. Okay, so it tells you that fine, better is that you surround this with a try catch block. Okay, so Java is enforcing you to surround it with try catch block, but if I write int I equals to 100 divided by 2, Java never forces me on this particular line, although exceptions will come at runtime for sure. Exception will come on runtime for sure. These types of exceptions are known as unchecked exceptions. It's the responsibility of the programmer, okay, to put these types of exceptions in a try catch block. Okay, and these exceptions over here are known as checked exceptions. Java will force you to put them under a try catch block, or if you don't want to put in a try catch block, you can simply use the throws keyword, click on the first one. The function will have the line that this main function throws interrupted exception, that is, it is capable of throwing an interrupted exception. You don't want, you know that fine, you are not going to get any exception on this line. then why should I forcibly, that you are not going into multi-threading over here and writing a complex multi-threaded programming game or something where threads are actually used. Okay, you as a programmer, you know that, fine, I'm not writing such a complex thing. So please, I don't want to include this try catch block over here, so I'll just write over here. So this function is capable of throwing this kind of exception. Okay, so there are two types of. Anybody with any questions? Somebody's speak. Yeah. Yeah, kind of main function. We are just telling that this function can throw this exception. That's it. However, if it gets thrown, then the program will get stopped. Yeah. Yeah. The the test case can throw this. I'll tell you when I build the test case. The test case can throw it. The test case function. In the end, main is also a function, right? The test case is also a function over there. So that function can throw. Okay. So this is like letting sneaking around and just telling that fine, keep it over here. Why should I be writing try catch block everywhere? Okay. So if you talk about exception hierarchy in Java, right, you should be knowing it because in interviews people can ask you, right? Just go to Google and type exception hierarchy Java. So you will get a diagram like this. Right, so this is the exception class, and there are two types of exceptions under it. Okay, there are two types. Ones are checked exceptions. The exception is a class inside Java. Okay, and there are few checked exceptions and unchecked exceptions. Unchecked exceptions are like I showed you arithmetic exception or null pointer exception. Fine. Null pointer exception means that your object is not initialized and you are trying to use it or something, right? But checked exceptions are something where you are forced to put try catch blocks. There is also something known as error on which you have no control. This can be like out of memory error or virtual machine error or something. You don't have any control over errors. We don't manage errors. Okay, but yes, we have to manage exceptions. Fine. And this is all inheritance. This is the super classes, and also I don't want to go into inheritance right now. Okay, I have not taught you, but I just understand that there are two types of exceptions right now, checked and unchecked. Okay, moreover, if you look at this particular diagram, I think this is the one. Okay, this is very small. Hold on. Yeah, we can take this. These images are so small over here. Actually, whenever I used to search, I used to get some good, uh, diagram with the exception hierarchy. That diagram has gone away. Anyways, let's leave it. Okay. So basically, I wanted to tell you that in exceptions, right, you have got few unchecked exceptions, which actually you are liable for that. Fine. Talking about say null pointer exception. At times, I've seen people doing this. For example, this was Bank of UK class. Okay. In my exceptions class, I will write Bank of UK B equals to null. the object reference B is not pointing anywhere, but you try to call a function like B dot deposit. So when you do this with the null object, when you do this and if you run the code, you get something known as null point. Okay, I am getting arithmetic before that. Just a minute. You will certainly get a null pointer exception over here. You see that on line number 24. So you have to be careful with this. Many times as beginners, people don't initialize objects when working with Selenium, and especially in the framework. So any time, anywhere, if you see null pointer exception, don't think Selenium has done something or framework. It's you who has not initialized some object and that is throwing null pointer. Okay. And it's not good to put this in a try catch block as well, because you cannot just put everything inside try catch block. This is something, null pointer is purely your mistake. Don't try to handle with try catch block, don't try to handle with anything. Just make sure the object is initialized. Okay. Now one more thing. When the try catch block executes, right, there is this exception block in which the control comes up. If an exception is thrown, if I write 100 divided by 0, then the object of internal exception class is created and it is passed over inside the catch block, where you can get the localized error message. You can write e dot get message, and if I run this code, it will see that inside catch block divided by 0 exception is there. Okay, this line is printed because of the message. If you want to print the complete stack trace, this is known as the stack trace. Okay, like the way for null pointer exception it is being printed that the null pointer is coming on line number 25 or something. If you want to print the complete stack trace, you can give the command e dot print stack trace. Okay, so this way the program will not stop, it will execute, but it will print the stack trace as well, that there was an arithmetic exception on line number 8 in exceptions. Okay, now this is really very important. Okay, because we will be managing lot of exceptions when we work with Selenium. One of the exceptions we just saw today was no such element exception, where the element was not present. Or you will also see element not interactable. Now these are exceptions in Selenium, element not interactable exceptions in Selenium. Sometimes what people do when they are writing scripts, say if I go to the website like bbc.com, fine, I click on more link. When I click on more link, I get, say, what is this, advertisement. Okay, if I click on more link, you see this menu coming up, music, TV, weather, sounds, and it disappears after the more link is, is clicked again. If I inspect this TV link, fine, or if I inspect this link, work life, this is the link. I can copy the XPath for this link. I can paste it over here. It will say that one element is found. Fine. If I click on the more link again, it disappears, but in the page source it is there. Okay, 1 out of 1 element it is writing over here. Even after disappearing, it is there. So what happens at times, people don't make it visible. They directly try to interact with the element, or the element takes maybe half a second to get visible, and before that you try to interact with the element. So at that time you get this element not interactable exception. Okay, so you have to be careful about these things. And you have got something known as WebDriver exception. This is a general exception which at times is not easy to figure out that what actually happened. Fine, this is just a normal generic exception which is thrown. Then you have got something known as stale element exception. Okay, right now I cannot tell you about this. I will have to present an example to actually talk about this in detail. Fine. So these are few of the exceptions which you will be actually getting when you're working with Selenium, right? And you can manage them with try catch block in the frameworks, fine, very easily. Okay, now the next thing is that we have seen basics about exception handling. Okay, we have seen basics about writing a script, calculating XPaths, right? We have seen how to simply launch a browser. Fine. The next thing which we will be taking is TestNG. Because before I move to Selenium, before I write Selenium scripts, I don't we never write our code in public static void main function. We build test cases. Okay, we validate stuff. Alright. So next 3 to 4 classes I'm going to keep on TestNG, and I'll talk a little bit about Selenium as well once we have done TestNG, because that is the main thing. Okay, once we are done with TestNG, I'll come back to Selenium and cover more features in Selenium. Okay, so I just gave you an overview of Selenium, that how it works and what Java is. Major thing is TestNG only. Okay, so we'll stop here for today because I'll need time to cover TestNG and all. Okay.